Welcome to Mama Needs a Moment. And we are here with some of our HER Plus expert providers. We'd like to give them a nice warm welcome and thank you for joining us today. We are recording our roundtable discussion on household systems that actually reduce stress. When most moms think about reducing stress, they often focus on doing more. I have to do this. I have to figure this out. They try to get more organized or somehow becoming better at juggling it all. But what if the answer isn't doing more at all? What if it's creating systems that help your household run more smoothly so you're not carrying everything alone? Today, we're exploring practical ways to reduce the mental load through routines, communication, delegation, sensory-friendly environments, and family systems that support everyone in the home. We'll discuss how small shifts can create meaningful change and help families move from simply surviving to truly thriving. Before we dive into our discussion, we'll have each expert introduce themselves and share a bit about their areas of expertise. And please don't forget, if you'd like to watch this conversation and see all of their faces, all of our podcast episodes are also available in video format on our YouTube channel.
So I'm Dr. Catherine Hutchinson. I'm a licensed psychologist and I'm a clinician at Peak City Psychology in Apex. And my specialty is working with women and moms, particularly sort of across the developmental trajectory of being a mom, from perinatal all the way through launching your kids to parenting adult and young adult children. So this is a topic I talk about pretty much every day, I would say.
Hey everyone, my name is Brittany Winslow. I am a pediatric occupational therapist and I am the owner and CEO of Emerge Pediatric Therapy. I have become really passionate also about this area in the last few years, being an ADHD mom of three myself. And so I feel like a lot of the area that I spend my time in now is understanding sensory processing, executive function, self-regulation, and all like the whole family system to understand how we can best support everyone and not just the kids. We have obviously the bread and butter of what we do in the clinic is working directly with kids, but that work gets so much richer whenever we factor in everyone in the whole family. So I've been spending a lot of my time in that in the last year or so. So excited for the conversation.
I am Anna Elizabeth. I'm what I call a healing specialist. So when we have conflict or trauma in our life, I use life and spiritual coaching, energy medicine, and intuitive guidance to help people create solutions by looking at their internal gifts that they have and the external resources that they have to achieve whatever that they want so that they and their families and their communities and their work can thrive no matter what's happening around them.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kate Lehman. I'm a nurse practitioner and a certified nurse midwife. And I am the founder of a practice, Mother Love Wellness. The goal of my practice is to help women through some of the biggest gaps I've identified in women's health, preconception care, early pregnancy, the first postpartum year, and perimenopause. These are all huge life transitions where women historically have not received the support they need. And I take a psychosocial approach. We look at labs and hormones and metabolic systems in addition to psychosocial issues to help women feel better faster. And I'm so excited to be on this panel and meet all these amazing referral partners. So this is just such an amazing holistic panel. I'm really excited to be here.
I'm Sarah Parise, founder of Great Days by Sarah, because I believe that everyone, especially moms, deserve to have more great days. And I'm known for helping moms, no matter how busy, no matter how overwhelmed, carve out just 2% of the day for their own wellness, not just the physical, coming from the personal training standpoint, but also the mental and emotional. So think fitness, food, and finding your best self at every age and stage of motherhood. And systems are my jam. So this is the only way that we get through the day. I'm really excited for this chat today.
We're going to move into designing a home that supports everyone and evaluating what's working and what's not working for them. When we think about stress, we often focus on schedules and responsibilities, but our physical environment can either support us or work against us. And I find that all the time in our house, where when it's messier, everyone's mood is worse. And so I'll have to re-listen to our last episode where people were giving examples on how to make that better, such as the laundry baskets around the house in different areas that we wouldn't think about. But the setup of our home influences behavior, routines, emotional regulation, and even family conflict. How can the way we organize and design our homes reduce stress and support the needs for the entire family?
So I love to take this first from a sensory perspective, and again, acknowledging that you do not have to have a sensory processing disorder to have sensory needs. We're all sensory beings, and we all have things that we really enjoy experiencing through our sensory systems and things that we don't like, and that fluctuates throughout the day. So for me, I mean, in my office right now, I have the lamps on instead of the overhead lights. I could tolerate overhead lights better right now, but in the evening, that's going to be harder for me. So I think we want to use sensory elements to think about how we want to model how we're feeling. So in the morning in our household, might use music that's getting people up and going, getting people more alert. You know, how can we use different sensory inputs that way to kind of get us going? But in the evening time, we're going to want to have, how do we turn down the lights to make them, not the big lights. We want the little lights on. We're going to be mindful of just all the different input. I like to talk to people about, there's a lot of competing needs in what everyone needs in their household when it comes to sensory. So how can we curate spaces within our house that everyone can get what they need? So maybe it's going to be really dysregulating in the evening for a kid to be jumping on the couch, but they need that, like they need that input to be able to get what their body needs. So what are the places, I see that your body needs this, where's somewhere else in the house that we can go to do that so we can honor what everyone else needs? So it's a lot of normalizing what people need within the household from the sensory perspective. How do we set up our households for that? So how do we talk about it? How do we acknowledge that in other people? And so knowing that there's things that we can do that are going to upregulate us, and there's things that are going to downregulate us. So finding opportunities for that throughout the household can be really, really helpful, particularly if you have household members that have sensitivities to any sensory input. That will easily, if you have a sensory sensitivity, you're going to be much closer to having a bigger reaction or a meltdown than if you didn't. So thinking about those things as you go throughout your day.
Sort of related to having different spaces for different things too. I think, being realistic, when my kids were teenagers, I knew that they were not always going to have cleaned up rooms, but I knew that clutter and mess, there's data here, it raises the cortisol of women and not of men and not of children. So I knew that for myself to be regulated, I needed some space that was clutter free. So it's sort of saying, okay, the kitchen and the family room, we're going to straighten that up, every evening and kind of have it be clean. But what happens in your room or your office or in this extra room is your business, and I can close the doors and not have to see that. So it's having different expectations for different spaces in the house.
And I love that, Dr. Catherine. We do just 5 minutes at the end of the day. We don't have to clean up an entire space, but when we wake up in the morning, we want it to be less cluttered than it was, or usually is by the end of the day. So we just say to the kids, like we set us up 5-minute timer, how much can we get done in that 5 minutes? And it is that those focus areas of the kitchen and the family room. It's not their kids' room. It's not the playroom. It's something that we all have to live in, and it's a community space. And that's kind of how we word it. So I like that you talk about that.
I've pulled from a lot of different approaches, like Montessori for my kids. They went to Montessori schools, and I learned a lot about setting up things for them, to be adaptable. And then, feng shui and hygge, I'd just like pull from all of it to make it, accessible for them, but, sensory friendly for me and them. So there's a lot of great techniques out there.
I just want to piggyback off what Dr. Catherine and Sarah said. The community spaces was definitely a huge plus in our home as well. So my children, the rule was, I don't care what you do in your bedroom. except you can't have food in there because if it's not clean, I don't want bugs. So you can't have food or drink in your room. But how that room exists is up to you. And I had one child who was totally tidy and everything was in its place. And I had another one, I would open the door and I was like, oh, I wish I hadn't opened the door. But they honored the no food and so he felt, this one child, he felt good in a room that was clothes everywhere and he took care of what he needed to do when he needed to do it. And so allowing that space for them to feel comfortable in whatever environment that they were and to learn. But those community spaces were where we sort of created that regulation. So that seems to be a broad support for a lot of environments.
Such a good reminder in this episode to pick and choose your battles. I guess we can say it that way. You know, there's certain areas in the home that we can focus on. I love the 5-minute cleanup, Sarah. We recently started doing that in our home, and it does make a big difference. You don't need a lot of time to just give you that little bit of space in your home where it just feels a little bit better and a little more livable. So thank you, everybody, for sharing your insights and these very practical, actionable strategies that we can implement in our home.